The long, hard days of the international break are upon us. But fear not, Mutton is here. Now, a lot of you who watch my football vlogs also like their beer, or at least I think they do, and they use the railways a lot. So join me today for a trip that involves beer and trains. We're going to do the Transpennine Ale Trail, an 8-stop trip between Manchester and Leeds, stopping at some lovely country pubs in the Pennines. So Muttonistas, believe it or not, this is actually the first time I will have completed this trip. I have been to bits of it before, so I have some idea about how the pubs are and what to order, but there is plenty of information on the website, and if you want to go and not bother looking at websites, just watch this video. This video might well be just the one for you. And in terms of the places we stop at, well, the names will roll off the back of the tongue for some of you, especially if you live somewhere in between Manchester and Leeds or in the north of England, but for others it'll be places that you've never heard of before. So, I'm going to get myself properly hydrated. I've had a reasonable amount of carbohydrate, have to keep myself fit for the day, or should I say trip fit. And many of you may well not know that it is very important to be hydrated before you start, as well as during and after, if you're taking a trip of these proportions. 8 pints might be a lot for some, or not that much for others. Anyway, it's a fair amount for me. So, we'll polish this off, and then we'll head to the train to take us to our first stop. While you could do this trip starting from either Manchester or Leeds, there's a good reason why it's better to start from the Manchester end, and that is because the most spectacular pubs, in my opinion, are in the middle of the journey. There aren't any really at the Manchester end, and there are a couple that are not far away from Leeds, and it doesn't matter so much if it's dark when I get there. So we're starting from here because we want to catch the best stuff in daylight. Now, if you are starting from Leeds, well, it's easy to do it by just going to Stalybridge first and working your way back. And our first stop, which will be well known to people who are familiar with the area, is actually the pub in the station. Never been into this one before, but I've heard good things about it. And maybe they have an unusual snack that I can try. Whether it's available today, we'll have to wait and see. Anyway, I'm getting thirsty. Let's go for our first pint.
Please stand well clear of the edge.
Well, that's got everything off to a cracking start. What a pity that it's not open today. Just the Primemutton's normal standard look, I'm afraid. Thankfully, only a 26-minute wait till the next train. Well, another problem, Muttonistas. The train that I was supposed to be getting at 10 to 4 doesn't stop at all the little stations down the route. Now, I thought all the Manchester to Hull trains did so, and in fact, whenever I've been on a Manchester to Hull train, they have stopped at these stations. So, what that means is because of that pub shutting, I've had an hour standing around doing nothing. Oh well, things never really go to plan, do they, on a mutton tour? Hopefully the rest of the day won't be as messy as this rather unfortunate start.
The next stop will be Marsden.
Muttonistas, welcome to Greenfield, which was supposed to be my second stop but has de facto become my first stop. It's been an hour and a bit since I left Manchester Piccadilly and I still haven't had a pint. But the pub we're going to today is open, so hopefully we can rectify that problem very shortly. I have a feeling this one won't touch the sides. Anyway, Greenfield, which is loosely in the borough of Oldham, is absolutely the last station in Greater Manchester before you hit Yorkshire. And the pub today is called the Railway, which is right opposite the station. Now, I hope their beer garden is in operation today, even though it's a bit of a cool day, because apparently they have some stunning views. But I also believe they have some good ales. Let's go and have one. Well, cheers Muttonistas, I've been looking forward to this one, and the beer garden apparently has stunning views, but we have to go out the front, up the hill a bit and to the right, so let's head there with our pint. Oh yeah. And how is that, Muttonistas, for a view from a pub? I've gone for a pint of Millstone Citra. Very pale hoppy ale, exactly the sort of thing I like, and it's 4% in strength. I don't want to stray too far above that because I'll be wellied by the time we finish that, if we do. And interesting, the lady serving behind the bar told me that she sleeps in the smallest room in the building just so she has that view when she wakes up. Quite understandable. Well, as I said, that pint hardly touched the sides. What it means, because I've got through that one so quickly, I can catch the next train in a few minutes' time to take us to our next stop, which is Marsden. And the lady behind the bar did ask me whether I wanted another one. So tempting, because it is lovely around here, but I have to say, I know some of you lads can manage 16 pints in a day. I'm afraid I can't. So for the purpose of research, filming and quality testing, I am only going to have 1 pint at each establishment. And I don't know if the camera's picking up the departure board here at Greenfield, but as you can see, I've been caught by a gap in the calendar. The 2:53, the 4:53 and the 5:53 all stop at all the stations along here, but the one an hour earlier, which is of course the one that Mutton wanted, didn't. Just like when I went to Wolverhampton for the Wolves game, I was caught by a gap in the timetable there. Oh well, means I'm probably not going to church enough or something. Well, Muttonistas, that was only an 8-minute train ride. The stops in this part of the world are very close together. Not exactly walking distance, because we went through a tunnel for about 6 of the 8 minutes, and Mutton ain't no mountain climber. Now, the pub I'm looking for is the Riverhead Brewery and Tap. Now, there are a few pubs here, it seems, and I've even seen a railway tavern, but I'm going to stick with the one that's officially listed. Apologies to owners of those establishments, because I have a feeling This is the sort of place you could spend all afternoon enjoying yourself if you were so minded. And I am looking forward, hopefully, to being able to sit in a beer garden and take in some of this exquisite scenery. Now, I've not actually ever been to Marsden before. I've been to most of the rest of the places on the trail. As I said, for some people this is the highlight of the trail. But one thing I've seen already is that there's a downhill walk now and an uphill one as punishment when you've had your beer later. So, Muttonistas, we have found our boozer, the Riverhead Brewery Tap. Now, if it's the same pub that my friends told me about, they said I should look for the utterly butterly bitter or utterly butterly ale. Whether they have that on today or not, I wouldn't have a clue. But only one way to find out.
Oh, hi mate.
And what a lovely outdoor seating area they have here as well. The butterly bitter was recommended to me. And a lovely pint it is as well. 3.8, so about right if we're doing 8 pints today. And a little something to keep us going, a pork pie. Now, of course, most British viewers will know exactly what a pork pie is, but for those of you abroad who don't, it is cured pork covered in a little bit of jelly in a pastry. And unless you take them straight from the oven when they're made, you always have them cold. Some people have them plain. I like a bit of mustard with mine. And I know there are good pork pies at our next stop on this route, but I thought for the purposes of quality control, I'd better have one here in Marsden as well. Now, I think I'm going to say the pork pies at the next place are better, but these are very good as well. Strongly recommend you take one with your beer if you're taking this trip. Well, that was jolly splendid, Muttonistas. I must admit I spent a little more time there than I had intended to. Spent an hour rather than half an hour, and I had a second pint. I do hope I don't come to regret that at the end of the evening. And now, Muttonistas, one of the shortest rides you can take on the British Railway network, the 3-minute trip from Marsden to Slaithwaite. Now, you might wonder how exactly you're supposed to spell Slaithwaite. Well, when we get there, I'll explain and show you how it is actually spelt and how the pronunciation is a little bit different. Muttonistas, behind me you can see what looks like the word Slaithwaite, and I must admit the first few times I'd taken this service and the one time I've actually been here, I used to say Slaithwaite, but I have it on good authority, in fact from everybody who's from Yorkshire and everybody who announces the stops on this service, that it is called Slaithwaite. Don't ask me why, the English language is like that. There are a lot of words with that ending which are pronounced wait, although most of our verbs are very easy and most of our grammar's very, very easy. I'm afraid there are words like this which you just have to learn. And another thing which is a little odd about this station is you can see here there appears to be only one platform, the eastbound platform heading towards Huddersfield and Leeds. But if you can see in the distance, staggered about 50 to 100 metres further on, there is a westbound platform. It is so hilly around here that that's what they've had to do. Anyway, this place I've been to before, and I know there's another steep downhill walk and another penalty walk on the way back. Anyway, I've still got a big thirst. Let's head to the pub. Now then, Muttonistas, this is where I am going, to this pub called the Commercial. Again, this is one of these places where you could spend an awful long time trying out all the local watering holes and eateries. Another pleasant establishment by the canal. And I suppose some of you will accuse me of committing heresy by not going to the Shoulder of Mutton pub. However, the Commercial is the one listed in all the guides, and to be honest, if you're doing this trip, I don't see why you can't try another place or try multiple places. But for the purposes of the vlog, we'll have one at the Commercial. And if I remember correctly, this is also a good football pub. Pity there's no football on there. So, safely ensconced in the Commercial and Slaithwaite Muttonistas, I have gone for the North Riding Brewery Citra Pale Ale. Now, you might have noticed that there seems to be a theme with these Citra hopped ales, and that's because I do like the very pale ones, which are very hoppy. A very English style, and to be honest, they're on the sort of high end of the hoppy scale, if there is such a thing, and so a lot of people prefer something a little less hoppy. But I like this. And that is a beautiful pint. I can really taste the hops in that. Anyway, I'll get on with this, and after that we'll be on for our next stop, which will be Huddersfield. Okay, Muttonistas, I have about 20 minutes till my train. Now, the train after has been cancelled, so I have to get that to get to Huddersfield, otherwise I'll be here for quite a long time. But when I see a pub called the Shoulder of Mutton, I can't really not go in, so I'm going to go in for the swiftest of swift halves. So a decent selection of ales and lagers on tap here, and although they did have a pale ale, given I'm only having a half, I thought, well, I'll introduce you to a different style of beer. I have gone for a quick half of the cherry porter from the Titanic brewery. I'm used to having their plum porter, but not their cherry porter before. And in case you're wondering what porter is, it's basically like a stout, and the word porter relates to porters at markets in London years ago drinking it. And the difference between an English stout and an Irish stout is that the English stouts are produced more in the style of a bitter or an ale, and they're often a little sweeter than Irish stouts, which are a bit drier. And the interior here, it's pretty well appointed. Stone walls, which are a common theme around here, and at least for the time of the evening, more than adequate seating and tables. Okay, let's give it a whirl. Oh wow, that is intensely cherryish, intensely so. It's quite nice. I wouldn't want too much of that in an evening because you'll only be end up getting one sweet flavour of cherries, but as a little diversion from the pale ale, not bad at all. Okay, I'm going to neck this and let's head to Huddersfield. Well, time to pay the penalty now with that fairly steep uphill walk. But what I would say is that the stops between Stalybridge and Huddersfield are so aesthetically pleasing that you want to make sure that you do these ones during the hours of daylight. And I do think this is the last of the trains where I have to keep a sharp eye on the timetable and cancellations, because from Huddersfield there are a ton of trains heading eastwards. In fact, there are 3 lines that you can take that will take you from Manchester to Leeds, and 2 of them converge at Huddersfield. So, Muttonistas, we've arrived at Huddersfield, and like Stalybridge, the recommended bar or pub is actually located inside the station. Stalybridge was closed, and Huddersfield, when I did the eastern half of this ale trail in 2020, was also closed. But I've got good reason to believe that it's open now. Come on, let's hope so. Well, I'm beginning to wonder. It is down at the end of platform 1 apparently, so let's hope that those lights just 25 metres in the distance are lights for the pub. And the pub is called the Head of Steam, and I must admit it's looking promising, but I have to go out of the station and back in to get in. Let's try this door. Aha, we're in. Wow, look at this Muttonistas leather seating. And look, a whole raft of taps here. I'm absolutely spoilt for choice. I would like a pale ale. Well, there was a beer called Bread and Butter Pale Ale available, but they had a beer called A Little Faith, which is a slightly weaker than normal Northern Monk Pale Ale, and I do like my beer from the Northern Monk, as many of you regular viewers will know. Probably I should have gone for the different one, but I don't know, I just can't resist the Northern Monk. I wish I had the time and the alcohol capacity to try both, but I don't, so I'm just going to have the one. And as always, a beautiful beer from the Monk. So, it does appear I have an hour's wait here. There was a slightly quicker service by 10 minutes if I change, but I'll spend the hour here and try the other pint. And my apologies in advance if this video turns into drunken nonsense at the end of the evening, but I'm sure I should be able to hold myself until we get to the end of the trip. Well, Muttonista, since we have an hour and 10 minutes layover here, I thought I'd better get some sustenance in, because there could possibly be a naughty second pint here. Anyway, this is as old-fashioned and traditional as it comes here in the UK. Pie, peas and mash. So, there we are. We have a beef and Stilton pie, gravy, mash and peas. Prime Minister, who are the company who supply these pies, are actually very good at what they do. I love the steak and blue cheese mix, particularly when I'm drinking beer, and the peas and mash, obviously knocked up quickly in the microwave, perfectly acceptable, and of course a great accompaniment to the beer. Okay, I managed to get out for one pint there, which was the sensible thing to do. 8 minutes on this train now to Mirfield, which is stop number 5 or 6, depending on how you count my non-stop at Stalybridge. Well, it says behind me, welcome to Mirfield in Bloom. Not quite sure what that's all about, but we're here to go to the pub, and this is a stop I've been to before, and it's only a few minutes away from the station. And of course, normally, on a weekend, there'd be groups of lads, maybe a little earlier in the day, hordes piling down these stairs to head to the pub. But hey, on a Tuesday just after a bank holiday, it's just little old me. Right, Muttonistas, we're now at the Navigation Tavern in Mirfield, and last time I was here it was hard to get a seat, but I think it'll be easier today. So the pub is quite quiet tonight. I can assure you at weekends it is absolutely not quiet, and it's another good pub for watching sport. And I've gone for the Longmore Pale Ale, which I'm going to have to drink quickly. I only have half an hour here after those 3 one-hour stops at Marsden, Slough and Huddersfield. I've got to put a bit of pace on so that I'm comfortable for taking a train back to Manchester. But here we go. Light and well hopped, and it's not that strong. It's what you call a session ale, and a session ale is basically one you can drink for quite a while during a session, as opposed to one of the stronger ones, which will get you wellied a bit quickly. And we wouldn't want to do that, would we, Muttonistas? Well, Muttonistas, that's pretty bad news. A 14-minute delay. I was supposed to be taking the 21:39 from Mirfield to Dewsbury, but it seems it's 14 minutes late. I'm going to have to check the timetables, because the last train back to Manchester is at 11 o'clock from Leeds, because the later services have been cancelled. These last 2 points could involve some pretty speedy drinking, and it might mean I've got no water or other refreshments to take back with me to Manchester. Oh, and as we can see, Mirfield Station is another one of those stations that's staggered, so that the westbound platforms are staggered 50 to 100 metres further down the line. Now the trains, the timetable, the delays haven't worked in my favour at all, and maybe I shouldn't have had that second pint in Marsden, but I'm going to have to take an executive decision to go on to Dewsbury as planned, and then the last stop, which is called Batley, I'm going to have to give that a miss. It's too risky. I want to be on the 11 p.m. from Leeds. The next 2 or 3 trains to Manchester after that are cancelled, and I'd have to wait until 2:25 or 2:35 a.m. to get another train back to Manchester after that, and that's something I want to avoid. And even as things are, I'll have 25 minutes to neck a pint at Dewsbury to get to Leeds. I wish I could just go back to Manchester from Dewsbury, but that is not possible. Well, Muttonistas, another delay, pushed back to 10 o'clock the train now, with the next one coming at 1 minute past 10, believe that or not. So, as is a theme with many of the pubs on this ale trail, this pub again is connected to the station, and it's called the West Riding Rooms, and I am going to have a very swift one. Well, I have a pint of Atom Pale Ale, a pale ale that's at 4.8%, a little stronger than some of the others, but we're coming to the end of the evening, so it doesn't matter. Nice view of the platforms outside. And unless there's a sudden delay, about 15 minutes now to drink this. Good pint though. Okay, net my pint, and we have 2 minutes to go before the train is scheduled to arrive, but of course it's 3 minutes late. Surprise, surprise. That should just give me enough time to get something from a shop at Leeds station. Well, things have got even worse here. I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. All those trains from Leeds to Manchester have been cancelled. Maybe somebody at the station can help me, but I suspect I'll be waiting for that 02:25. Splendid. So Transpennine Express have some lovely new trains, but my goodness, their service is diabolical. I don't know what I'm going to do now, but on Mutton tours and on Channel Primemutton, we are used to things going the shape of the pear, so we will find something to do. My goodness, is that train really that late? Well, as luck had it, a guard was standing at the platform when I arrived, and he said that if you want to go to Manchester, take this train to Huddersfield that left in like 4 minutes, and then a rail replacement bus service from Huddersfield. Lovely. And I can't tell you how much I hate it when this happens. I mean, no access whatsoever to refreshments or anything. Not a bottle of water, a beer, a packet of crisps, anything. This is going to be thoroughly unpleasant, but it is part of British life, unfortunately. And needless to say, the replacement bus service, which should have left a few minutes ago, hasn't gone anywhere, and we don't even know where the driver is. have to say that this is actually quite a nice bus, very luxurious seating, tables for nearly everybody. It's just a pity that it's going to be so slow, and I have no refreshments at all. Well, Muttonistas, what a day that was. It's 1:20 I'm back where I started at Manchester's Piccadilly station, and it is fair to say that the trip went a little bit pear-shaped today. Having said that, I mean, maybe I could have left an hour earlier. I don't want to start drinking that early in the day. I think the railways were particularly bad today, and the way I did it today should normally see you at all 8 pubs. I mean, I couldn't do anything about the pub at Stalybridge being closed, and there was a gap in the schedule which I maybe should have researched. But I still, despite what happened to me today, don't think it's a trip that you have to plan with meticulous precision. Take everything as it comes, check the trains a little bit so you're not waiting for half an hour, and make sure you leave the pub at the appropriate time. I think you can just take it easy, enjoying some great pubs, great scenery, and quite a historic part of our railway network. If you enjoyed the vlog, please leave a thumbs up or leave a comment in the comment section, and in particular leave a comment if you try this ale trail or a different route. There are quite a few in the UK. But of course I'm going to have to love you and leave you at this point. Keep liking, keep sharing, keep subscribing, and most of all, don't forget, you can't beat a bit of mutton.